Hey guys, I got a fun one for you today. I'm going to show you guys how to make a clicker game. A clicker game is a game where you basically click on or tap on something over and over and over, and you get some kind of currency for each click, and you can upgrade your clicks and upgrade a per second power up or buy other power ups with your currency. Um, and there's lots of other ways to configure said game type of game. So basically, we're just going to have something that we click and a place to display the currency. We'll start there. So I'm going to decide first what my currency is going to be. I love cats, so I'm going to make my currency kittens. So I'm going to have an image of a kitten that I click, and every time I click the kitten, I get a kitten. So my currency is going to be kittens. So I need an image element that displays the kitten, and I need a paragraph element or a header element to display the number of kittens that I currently have. So let's make the image element. The source will be some picture of a kitten. I can either download this or find it on the internet. I actually happen to have a picture of a kitten, so I can put this in my list of files to the left. And we need to give it an ID so that we can refer to it in JavaScript. I'm going to call it kitten since it's a picture of a kitten, but you can call this whatever you want as long as it doesn't start with a number. For the picture of the kitten, I'm going to go to my files list. I'm going to upload a file from my computer of a kitten. All right, here's my kitten. I will drag it from my file selector into the file area. Here it is, kitten.jpg. Now I can refer to it using its file pathway. Source equals kitten.jpg. Now there the kitten is, but it's way too big. Way, way, way too big. So we'll use the CSS file to make it smaller. You can refer to an element by its ID by writing a hashtag in the selector and then writing the name of the ID of the element that we want to change the styles of. In this case, it's hashtag kitten because the ID of it is kitten. Now we can specify the size of this image. If you specify just a width or just a height, it will make it that width and it will make it a certain height based on um, what height it would be or what width it would be based on the image's normal aspect ratio, which means if the image wasn't stretched out abnormally. So I'm just going to set either the width or the height, but not both, so the picture doesn't get warped. I'm going to set 150 pixels at first and see how that looks. Okay, that looks good. That fits on my screen. Now let's make the element that contains the number of kittens we have. You can either make this a paragraph element or you can make it a header element if you want it to show up larger. I'm going to make it a header so that the number is big and easy to see. And for the ID, I'm going to call it counter because it's going to be a running counter of how many kittens we have. You don't have to call it counter. You could call it kittens, but the only reason I'm not calling it kittens is because it looks very similar to the word kitten and it might be easy to confuse. So I'm calling it something that looks different from the ID of the other element. ID equals counter. And when the game starts, you won't have any kittens. So the counter will always start off at 0. So that element will start containing 0. Then we need a function that runs when you click on the kitten that increases the number of kittens that you have. I would recommend calling this something that reflects the fact that it is run when you click on the kitten. I'm going to call it kitten clicked. All right, so when we write our scripts, we're going to need to define kitten clicked. So we'll need to do that. But in order to do that, we'll have to refer to the other element, which is the counter. And in order to do that, we would need to call the method documentGetElementById every time we refer to this. And we don't want to have to do that. So instead, I'll create a global variable that refers to this element and just use that variable every time we want to refer to this element to make our code shorter. So there's a couple things that we need to do to start up the game. And all those things need to happen every time the game starts. So I'm going to make a function that contains everything that needs to be done to start the game. And I want that to happen every time the window loads. This will make the game progress restart every time the window loads. However, most other games, they get around this by either putting the game progress in the local storage, which is beyond the scope of this class, or they have the game storage stored in a text file that you upload to the game. So this game is not going to save your progress, but it's still a good learning experience. So just like the meme generator, I'll probably put a link card in here so that you guys can see it. We'll refer to the window property onload, which contains the name of a function that will be called when the window is finished loading. I'm going to call that function start game because it starts the game. And we don't need to put the parentheses here because this function cannot take parameters. Now we define it. All right, now we're going to tell the program everything that we want it to do when the window is done loading and the game starts. So that's everything that happens when we click the green run button or when the window loads. So we're going to have it look for this image element and give it a name. We're going to have it look for this counter element and give it a name. And we're going to call the kitten picture kitten. If it's not a kitten for you, you don't have to call it kitten. In fact, you probably shouldn't call it a kitten if it's not a kitten. But I'm going to call it a kitten because it's a kitten. And then the value of kitten is going to be the value returned by the method document get element by ID. The word get is not capitalized and all the other words are capitalized. This is known as camel case. The ID of the element we want it to look for is kitten. All right, now the image element has a name. It's called kitten. Now we can make an object for the counter element in the exact same way. Document get element by ID, whatever ID we assigned it in the HTML file. The kitten is this element, the counter is this element. Now we can use both of these names instead of having to call this whole function every time that we refer to those elements. This is going to make our code a lot easier to write. Now we can define the kitten clicked function. Right, so the number 0 actually represents how many kittens we have. So we actually need to initialize a variable when we start the game, which represents how many kittens you have. That variable is going to be of type integer, not of type object. Well, it is technically an object, but it's a basic object. You can call it, again, whatever you want, but it should reflect the fact that it's the number of currency items that you have. So in my case, it's the number of kittens. I'm going to say num of kittens. You could call it that. You could call it currency. I would not recommend calling it kittens because that looks very similar to the word kitten. You could even call it current kittens because it refers to the number of kittens that you currently have. This is also written in camel case. I'm going to call it current kittens. Every time you start the game, you start off with 0 kittens. So the variable current kittens should be initialized with the value of 0. So every time the kitten is clicked, the value of current kittens should be increased. For now, we'll have it increased by 1, but in a second, we'll add some features that will allow it to be increased by more than 1. To increase a variable by 1, and you can only do this with integers, to increase an integer variable by 1, you can use the shorthand plus plus in JavaScript. So this will increase the variable, but it won't actually change what this element says. It will stay saying 0. The program will just quietly increase this number without showing us that this number has changed. So if we want it to show us that the number has changed, we have to change the inner HTML content of the counter element. This is how we would do that. We reference the name of the element, counter, and the inner HTML property, which is whatever is in between the opening and closing tag, that is the inner HTML. And then we set that to current kittens. That is the number of kittens that we have. Now if we run this, every time we click the kitten, that number will increase by 1. You can't do anything with this just yet, but now we have a really basic clicking function. At this point, we want to be able to upgrade our clicks. We want to have a button that when we click it, it deducts a certain number of kittens from our kitten count and also increases the number of kittens we get per click. Which means that we can't just, line 10 cannot just increase current kittens by 1. It needs to increase current kittens by a variable because the number of kittens that we get per click is now going to change. So we need to create a variable for that in the start game function. We'll call that kittens per click because it represents the number of kittens you get every time that you click the kitten. It'll start off as 1 because when the game starts you only get 1 kitten per click, but as you purchase upgrades that number will change. And then we'll change line 11 so that you no longer get just 1 kitten per click every time. Current kittens will increase by kittens per click, which will start off as 1, but it will not always be 1. So to increase a variable by another variable or by another value, the shorthand is plus equals. So plus equals means increase by. We're going to increase current kittens by kittens per click. And then we display the new amount of current kittens inside of the counter element. This works the same way right now. We wrote the code just differently, but it works the same. So let's add our upgrade button. Button ID equals, we'll call it per click upgrade because it upgrades your per click value. And when we click on it, we'll run the function that increases the number of kittens you get per click. So it's increasing the kittens per click value. We'll call it more kittens per click. Kind of a long name for a function. It's not usually a good idea to make functions this long, but I'm making it long so you guys can understand what this function does. Now we define the function. Increase kittens per click. Now we'll tell I forgot to write the text inside of the button. So this button will say increase kittens per click. Ending tag for the button. Here's how it'll look. Increase kittens per click. So this function will increase the kittens per click variable by some amount. You could have it increase by 1 every time, but that will make your game get pretty boring pretty quickly. So a lot of people have it increased by 1%. Times equals 2. So every time we increase kittens per click, it will multiply the variable by 2. So first click, 1, 2, increasing. The next 2 clicks should give us 2. 4, okay. 6, now we're getting 2 per click. Click this again. Now we should be getting 4, 10, 14. Yep, that's exactly what we want to happen. But when we click this button, we don't lose any kittens. It doesn't cost us anything. So let's make this function remove some of our kittens. The cost is up to you. Let's make a variable that represents the cost of the upgrade. Per click cost. Pretty long variable name, but it's not going to confuse anybody because it's very complete. I'm going to make the first upgrade cost 5 kittens. The higher you make this number, the harder your game will be. Totally up to you what you decide to make this. So now this function is going to check to make sure that I have 5 kittens before it increases my kittens per click. To make it do that, we say if, then it will check the value of current kittens, which is the number of kittens that we have. Kittens is greater than or equal to whatever the per click upgrade cost is. And it's not always going to be the same because every time we upgrade, the cost of the next upgrade will increase. So if we have enough money for the upgrade, it will proceed with the upgrade. If we have enough for the upgrade, we'll proceed with the upgrade. Increase our kittens per click, deduct the cost. So it will subtract our current kittens by the cost of the upgrade. And then it will display to us that we now have fewer kittens by updating the counter. And if we don't have enough kittens right now, it's not going to do anything. But we want it to do something if we don't have enough kittens, so we'll make an else case. I'm going to make it alert something if we don't have enough kittens. If we try to buy an upgrade that we cannot afford, I'm going to have it alert the user, not enough kittens. Let's try that out. I'm going to buy an upgrade right away that I cannot afford. Not enough kittens. Okay, let's get enough kittens and then try to buy it. Okay, we had our kittens deducted. Now we're getting 2 kittens per click. Now the upgrade cost is 5 per click every time. Or it's 5 kittens each time, but we want the cost to increase every time we buy an upgrade. So increase kittens per click, if you can afford the upgrade, is also going to increase the cost of the next upgrade. So the per click upgrade cost is also going to be multiplied by 2. If you want to make your game harder, you could multiply it by a higher number like 2.5. These numbers are totally up to you though. Problem is right now, the user doesn't know if they can afford their upgrade because they don't know how much the upgrade costs. So let's make an element that displays the cost right beneath the button. Or we could put that inside the button. For now, I'm going to put the cost inside the button here. And I'm going to call this button per click upgrade button. And I'm going to give it a name inside the start game function. Per click upgrade button is the element with the ID per click upgrade. Per click dash upgrade. And every time we increase the cost, it will change the number at the end of the inner HTML property. So after it changes the cost, it will change the inner HTML of the button. It starts with a string, increase kittens per click, colon, space, and then the number which represents the cost. Concatenate the number to the string with a plus symbol, and then the cost, which is called kittens per click upgrade cost. Let's try it out. Get enough kittens to afford the upgrade. All right, now it says 12.5 kittens per click. I don't want it to be a decimal though. So to make it not be a decimal, I am going to floor the value that kittens per click upgrade cost produces. The way we do this is we use, actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply it by 2, not by a decimal. We can afford the first upgrade, buy it. Now it says 10 kittens per click. Now it says 20. Now it says 40. If we try to buy one that we can't afford, it says not enough kittens. Now we want to do the kittens per second. Kittens per second is going to be driven by a function called setInterval, which makes a function run on a certain interval. So when the start game function runs, it's going to begin an interval, which adds the kittens per second variable every second. So we'll have a variable that represents how many kittens you're currently getting per second, which will start off at 0, but it will be changed by the code that we are about to write. And then the program will set an interval, which will add kittens per second to your current kittens once per second. So setInterval takes two parameters. The first parameter is a function to run, and the second parameter is a time interval in milliseconds. So the time interval is going to be 1000 because 1000 milliseconds is 1 second. I'm going to define the function that is called once per second right beneath here. I'm going to call the function that gives you your per second allowance get per second. So get per second is going to give you your kittens per second, each second. Very simple. It's going to increase your current kittens, increase by kittens per second. Now we need an upgrade button for this variable too. So we'll duplicate the button that we created for the upgrade per click. We'll put it right beneath that button. Instead of calling it per click upgrade, we'll call it per second upgrade. And instead of running the function increase kittens per click, we'll make it run the function increase kittens per second, which is not the same as get per second. Get per second adds the per second value to your current kittens, and increase kittens per second increases the kittens per second variable. So they're different. I'll make the kittens per second upgrade a little bit more expensive than the kittens per click because it's more valuable. Let's see how that looks. Increase kittens per click, increase kittens per second. Doesn't look great, but we can fix that later. All right, let's define increase kittens per second. It's going to be very similar to increase kittens per click. It's going to check to see if you have enough kittens, and if you do, it's going to initialize the upgrade. If you don't, it's going to say not enough kittens. So honestly, I'm just going to copy and paste everything from increase kittens per click, and I'm just going to change a few things. Change the word click to second. And kittens per second is also going to have an upgrade cost. So we need to add that variable, set it to 10, because we chose the first upgrade for per second to be 10. The first kittens per second upgrade cost is going to cost 10 kittens. Kittens per second upgrade cost, kittens per second will be multiplied by 2. Then subtract current kittens by the kittens per second upgrade cost. Then update the current kittens. Then change the upgrade cost. Increase it. Then we're going to have to make an element for the per second upgrade button. All right, double check and make sure inside this function that you changed every per click to per second. Not this one, this one. Oops, I did the wrong one. Per click up, increase kittens per click should affect the per click variables. Increase kitten per second should update the per second variables. All right, let's try this out. We'll get 10 kittens, then try to get kittens per second and see if we are receiving them. We are not receiving them. See if there's an error in the console. There is not. All right, debugging time. I would like to see if this function is running. So we'll log to the console something when this function is called. It says not enough kittens when I don't have enough kittens, so the else case works. But something is wrong with the if case. This code that's inside of these curly brackets. Some of these lines, something's wrong with it. Let's run it again. So this works. Okay, that worked. Awesome. But it is now not giving us our kittens per second. So perhaps the get per second function is not working. Let's see if get per second is running. We should see this message in the console, getting your kittens per second. We should see that once per second. And if we don't, then something is wrong with nothing is wrong with it. So nothing is wrong with the set interval. The interval is indeed happening. I just realized what's wrong. It's increasing the current kittens, but it's not showing us the new amount of kittens that we have. So the second thing it needs to do after it adds the kittens is it needs to update the counter. Let's try it again. 10 kittens. Increase kittens per second. I see nothing happening. Okay, I just realized that it's because kittens per second starts out as 0 and it's multiplied by 2. 0 times 2 is 0. So what it's going to have to do is multiply by 2 and add 1. So we can't use the shorthand. So we're gonna have to say kittens per second equals kittens per second times 2 plus 1. 10 kittens. Now we are getting our kittens per second. Now let's get 20 kittens and see if we can purchase the upgrade again. Now we are getting more kittens per second. All right, I've given you guys a lot to do, so if you want, you can let the page show you how many kittens per click you're currently getting, how many kittens per second you're currently getting. I just realized the button says completely the wrong thing. At some point, the kittens per second button starts saying kittens per click, and I'm not sure why. Oh, it looks like it works now. Anyway, you can change the styles, change how the buttons look, change how the background looks, change how the text looks. There's a lot of ways to have fun with this. See you guys soon and have fun.